As the world heats up, the great ice sheets are melting and the rising ocean is becoming more and more of a problem, especially for the places surrounded by water. Our Earth sure is beautiful, but it can also be absolutely unforgiving. It is said that the homes of over 200 million people could be at risk by the time 2050 rolls around, which really is not that far away. Today we are taking a look at places all over the world, some that are more prepared than others, as we dive into part 3 of the top 10 places that will soon be underwater. Before I get into the video, however, I just want to remind you that two of your faves, Rachel and Dewey, are starting their own new channel called Bumblebee. August 11th is the official launch date of their channel, so make sure you click the little link in the description box to head over there and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on their very exciting launch. Let's get into this list. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Venice. Scientists have warned that if something doesn't change soon, Venice is on track to be submerged in water by 2100. The Mediterranean Sea is on the rise and is predicted to see a growth of 140 centimeters or 4 feet in the next century, which may not seem like a lot, but this would be devastating to coastal cities. Not only has it been said for years that Venice is sinking, but the city has also been seeing an increase in some of the worst floods in its history, which surely cannot be a good sign. Not only is the city and its residents at risk, but the historical architecture of the city is also facing some troubles, even now with just the floods the city is having. Italy did begin to build flood barriers all the way back in 2003, and the work was supposed to be completed a decade ago, but it is looking like it might take until next year, if not longer, to complete the work. During the worst time for flooding in the city, water levels are seen rising as much as 4 feet, which has the city building wooden catwalks so that people can still get around the flood instead of having to go directly through it. In our number 9 spot today we have Hoboken. The majority of New Jersey is at risk of extreme and detrimental flooding, but Hoboken is most definitely one of the places at the highest risk. In fact, it is ranked number 2 on a list of communities in America with the greatest percentage of homes at risk of chronic flooding. It is currently estimated that almost 30% of the population has a home that is at risk for flooding by 2060 alone, and that number jumps to 44% by 2100. That is a huge deal in a super short amount of time. The city is already seeing the negative effects of the rising sea levels, with much more frequent floods and sewer backups. The rise in sea level is causing the land to sink and saltwater is beginning to intrude on the groundwater. Not only is the coast expected to see a 1-foot rise in the sea level by 2050, but the city is also at much greater risk for huge storms. In our number 8 spot today we have Lagos. Lagos, Nigeria is the home to over 24 million people, and it is also one of the most at-risk places due to the rising sea levels. The streets of the city are already often flooded, in part due to the city's issue with garbage, which is often littered in the streets and then found clogging drains during heavy rainfall. Because of climate change, the city is expected to see less rainfall overall, but more intense storms when it does rain, which is a major cause for concern, especially when coupled with the eroding coastlines and rising seas. In a 2012 study from the University of Plymouth, it was said that a rising sea level of only 3 feet would have catastrophic effects on this region. This is a huge issue because global sea levels are expected to rise by at least 4 feet by the end of the century, which means that the issues Lagos are currently facing are only going to get worse if something isn't done, and fast. In our number 7 spot today we have Hilton Head Island. Hilton Head Island is located in South Carolina and is a part of the Low Country region. It is known best for its Atlantic beaches and golf courses, as well as the Harbortown Lighthouse and Museum that can be found on the southwest tip of the island. There is also a wildlife refuge located on the island which hosts animals like deer, alligators, and birds. Unfortunately, like most coastal towns and islands, all of this beauty and the things it has to offer are under severe threat due to the rising sea levels. It is currently estimated that 25.6% of the habitable land on the island will be underwater by 2060, and that number is jumping up to 57.6 by 2100. This means that almost 24% of the homes on the island are at risk for flooding by 2060, and just under 60% of homes by 2100. That is absolutely devastating for the community and the people that live there, not to mention all of the wildlife that call the island home as well. In our number 6 spot today we have Alexandria. Alexandria is a Mediterranean port city that is located in Egypt and is the 7th largest city in Africa. The city has strong ancient history ties as it was founded by Alexander the Great, and it was once connected to a small island called Pharos. Pharos once housed a lighthouse that was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This area was thought to be extremely promising because of its coastal location, and it proved to be just that, as well as an important industrial center because of its natural gas and oil pipelines. But now some of the things that once made it so enticing might be what brings it to its demise. The beaches of Alexandria have already been seen disappearing because of the rising sea levels. There have been estimations that the Mediterranean Sea will see rises of around 2 feet by 2100. This may not seem like a lot, but considering the effects have been both seen and felt already, who knows what things will be like with that kind of change on the near horizon. In our number 5 spot today we have Chesapeake. Chesapeake in Virginia is one of the places with the highest threat of being submerged in water, but really all of Virginia is under this threat. Not only are the sea levels rising, as we all well know at this point, but the land of Virginia is sinking at a rate of 1 inch every 10 years. This may not seem like a lot, but these things coupled together only makes the situation worse. The sea level rising is only speeding up too. Before it took 26 years for the sea level in the area to rise 6 inches, but experts are estimating that the next 6 inches will only take 13 years this time. The area is sometimes now even facing flooding when there is no rain because of the pressure from the levels as well as higher tides. The levels are also a problem when facing things like hurricanes, as it can make them even worse, as if a hurricane wasn't already bad enough. It is estimated that what was once every 100-year storm surges will soon turn into once every 10-year surges, or even more frequent by the year 2050, which is approaching rapidly and will only further progress the issues these areas are seeing. In our number 4 spot today we have California. There was a time in California where, while other places were beginning to see the effects of the rising sea levels, California was sitting pretty, enjoying the seemingly endless summer with decades of favorable winds and cooler, calmer waters, but that is rapidly changing due to something that scientists call sea level rise suppression. California is known for its lavish homes built as close to the water as one could get, but as it turns out, those with homes more inland probably made a lot better of a decision in the long run. In the last 100 years, the sea level in California rose less than 9 inches, but by the end of this century it could rise as much as 9 feet. With California mostly focusing on the wildfire and drought effects of climate change, which is of course just as much of an imminent threat, it seems as though the threats of the rising sea levels are slipping through the cracks. The coastline is rapidly eroding, and not only are the multi-million-dollar homes at risk, but so are things like the Pacific Coast Highway and the rail line to San Diego. I mean, take Balboa Island for example. It's barely above sea level as it is, and now they're facing floods even if the tide just simply gets too high. Unfortunately, sometimes these things move quicker than we can even keep up with. In our number 3 spot today we have Rotterdam. Rotterdam is located in the Netherlands, which is well known for being a leading country when it comes to things like battling floods, and with the threats currently facing the province, they're doing what they can to adapt. The biggest protection they currently have is a dam that closes once storm surges exceed 3 meters in height. At this point they haven't had to use this dam very much. Actually only twice in 22 years, but experts are saying that might quickly get bumped up to at least once annually. The entire area has faced changes so as to more efficiently mitigate flooding, such as parking garages being turned into emergency reservoirs, removing concrete paving in gardens and neighborhoods to increase water absorption capacity. Just really smart moves that continue to help the residents live their lives without the imminent threat of flood. Despite everything that they're doing, however, this is still not enough to contain the expected 1 to 2 meter rise in sea levels in the area by 2100. If this were the case, that would put about 98% of the population underwater by that year. I guess this goes to show that we can do as much as we want to help prevent floods, but Mother Nature is just more powerful than we are. In our number 2 spot today we have Manila. Manila is located in the Philippines, and it is a place that has one of the highest risks of going underwater. In fact, the risk is so high that a village just 17 kilometers north of it has already been submerged. This village is sinking at a rate of around 4 centimeters every year, and the 100 families that used to live there have now dwindled down to 40 because of the circumstances. In this area, the sea levels are rising at a rate 4 times faster than the global average, and we know how fast the global average is already rising, so that is just unbelievable. Other than the rising sea, this area also faces issues like earthquakes and typhoons, which can cause floods to these kinds of coastal areas. The area is already seeing too many tropical storms a year, but that number is only expected to increase because of climate change. They're also facing land subsidence, which is thought to be from excessive groundwater extraction, which only furthers all of these issues. Manila has a population of around 13.9 million people, not to mention the wildlife that also call the area home, so the risk of flooding is most certainly going to have a huge impact on a high number of people. In our number 1 spot today we have Yangon. Yangon in Myanmar is at an extreme risk for being submerged in water, which should come as no surprise considering Myanmar is considered one of the countries most vulnerable to climate change in the entire world. Throughout the years, the area has already seen mass amounts of record-breaking floods, stronger storms, and unpredictable rainfall, and this, coupled with the experts' predictions that sea levels in the area are going to rise from 40 to 100 centimeters by 2080, is very dangerous, and things really aren't looking good. A 50 centimeter increase would lose 10 kilometers of land in the low-lying areas. With all of the other effects of climate change taking place and not only taking the lives of thousands of residents, but displacing even more, this is an area that is under immediate threat, more than a lot of the other areas we've discussed today. The residents in this area depend on the natural resources and ecosystems for their economy, so losing areas of land is devastating for a multitude of reasons. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye!